Thank you very much. You may be settled. Thank you. I will now invite His Excellency President Jacob Zuma to open the ceremony. Thank you.
Your Excellency, President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China, Your Excellency, President Robert Mugabe, Chairperson of the African Union, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, Ministers and Deputy Ministers present, Ambassadors, High Commissioners, business leaders, leaders from civil society, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I wish to welcome all of you to this Johannesburg summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, the first to be held in the African continent. I especially wish to extend a warm welcome to President Xi Jinping, the co-chair of the summit, to South Africa and the African continent. Your Excellencies, guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to declare this Johannesburg summit of FOCAC officially opened. I would now like to invite His Excellency President Xi Jinping to deliver open remarks.
尊敬的祖马总统，尊敬的非洲联盟轮值主席穆加贝总统，尊敬的各位元首首脑，尊敬的非盟委员会主席祖马女士，尊敬的各位同事、各位嘉宾，女士们、先生们、朋友们。很高兴在美丽的彩虹之国南非，同这么多的非洲兄弟、新老朋友相聚一堂。作为会议共同主席，我也热烈欢迎大家出席中非合作论坛约翰内斯堡峰会。衷心感谢东道国南非为这次会议所做的精心准备和周到的安排。这是我第7次踏上非洲大陆，也是我担任中国国家主席之后 第2次访问非洲。每次来到非洲，都能看到非洲的新发展、新变化。今天的非洲呈现出蓬勃发展的新景象，令人振奋，令人鼓舞。非洲积极探索符合自身发展实际的发展道路，坚持以非洲方式解决非洲问题，独立自主势头锐不可挡。非洲积极推进工业化，谋求自主可持续发展，快速发展势头锐不可挡。非洲加快一体化进程，在国际舞台上坚持用一个声音说话，联合自强势头锐不可挡。我欣赏南非前总统曼德拉先生说过的一句话：我们站立在非洲世纪的破晓时分，在这一世纪里，非洲将在
But Africa will take its rightful place among the nations of the world.
我相信
I couldn't agree more with this statement, and I am convinced that African countries and people are embracing a new era that is truly theirs.
中国政府和人民
We in China, both the government and people, heartily rejoice over and are proud of Africa's achievements.
祝愿非洲国家
We sincerely wish African countries and people greater achievements
更大的成就，拥有
and
更加美好的
an even brighter future in pursuing development and progress.
尊敬的各位同事，
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen,
中非历来是命运
China and Africa share a common
共
future.
同的历史遭遇，
We Chinese and Africans have forged profound friendship
让中非人民接
through
下
our
了
common historical experience and in our common struggles.
我们始终风
We
雨
have
同舟
always supported each other in trying times.
中国援建的坦赞铁路
The Tanzara Railway and the Convention Center of the African Union, built with Chinese assistance, are landmarks of Africa-China friendship.
在援非
The
抗击
Chinese government and people took the
率
lead
先行动，
in helping Africa fight Ebola
援非抗
and led the international community in its efforts to assist Africa to combat the epidemic, demonstrating the bond of brotherhood between China and Africa in time of
无私
difficulty.
支持中国重返
On our part, we deeply appreciate the African countries' selfless support to China's return to the United Nations and their donations made to China when China's Wenchuan and Yushu areas were hit by massive
记在心。
earthquakes.
中非友好历久弥坚，
What has made China-Africa friendship
其根本
durable
原因就
and
在于双
vigorous
方始终坚持
is that the
平
two
等相
sides
待
have always been guided by the principle of treating each other as equals, promoting win-win progress and
中非
common
永远
development,
是好朋友、
and
好
enhancing
伙伴、
sincere friendship and cooperation. China and Africa will forever remain good friends, good
中非都
partners,
肩负
and
发
good
展国
brothers.
家、改善民生的使命。
China and Africa both shoulder the historical mission of developing our respective countries and improving the livelihood of our
正
peoples.
处于工业化的
Africa
新时
enjoys
代
abundant natural and human resources and has reached the stage of taking off in industrialization. China, after reform and opening up of over 30 years, is now in a position to help Africa realize sustainable self-development with technology, equipment, professional and skilled personnel,
支持非洲
and
发展
capital.
强大的政治优势。
In particular, China has a strong political commitment to supporting Africa in achieving development and prosperity. China and Africa share mutual needs and complementarities and face a rare historic opportunity in pursuing development through cooperation. In the new era, we should carry forward the traditional China-Africa friendship and translate the strengths of our traditional friendship into driving forces. To boost solidarity, cooperation, and development so that we will deliver more tangible benefits to our peoples and make greater contribution to the development of the world in a more balanced, just, and inclusive manner, and to the building of a new model of international partnership based on win-win cooperation. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, the world is undergoing profound changes. Economic globalization and IT application have tremendously unleashed and advanced social productive forces. We are facing unprecedented opportunities of development. On the other hand, hegemony, terrorism, financial turbulence, and environmental crisis have become more pronounced, posing unprecedented challenges to us. In conducting China's relations with Africa, we adhere to the principles of sincerity, practical results, affinity, and good faith, and uphold the values of friendship, justice, and shared interests. And we will work with Africa to embrace a new era of win-win cooperation and common development. With this in mind, I propose that the new type of China-Africa strategic partnership be upgraded to a comprehensive, strategic, and cooperative partnership. To forge this partnership, we should strengthen the following 5 major pillars. First, we should remain committed to political equality and mutual trust. A high degree of political mutual trust is the foundation of China-Africa friendship. We should respect each other's choice of development path and not impose our own will on the other. On issues involving core interests and major concerns of each side, we should show mutual understanding, support each other, and jointly uphold equity and justice. China strongly believes that Africa belongs to the African people, and that African affairs should be handled by the African people. Second, we should remain committed to promoting win-win economic cooperation. We Chinese value both friendship and justice as well as shared interests and place more importance on the former. Friendship and justice, which defines China-Africa relations, require us to boost Africa's development with China's development and ultimately deliver win-win progress and common development through mutually beneficial cooperation. We should fully leverage the strengths of political mutual trust and economic complementarities between China and Africa and focus on industrial capacity cooperation as well as the 3 networks and industrialization. By doing so, we can deepen China-Africa cooperation in all areas and bring its benefits to our peoples. Third, we should remain committed to mutually enriching cultural exchanges. Diversity makes the world beautiful. We are proud that both China and Africa have time-honored and splendid civilizations. We should strengthen cultural exchanges and mutual learning between China and Africa, facilitate more exchanges between the youths, women, think tanks, media, universities, and other sectors of the 2 sides. Promote cultural interactions, policy coordination, and people-to-people exchanges to advance common progress and ensure the sustained growth of China-Africa friendship from generation to generation. Fourth, we should remain committed to mutual assistance in security. Poverty is the root cause of chaos, while peace is the guarantee for development. Development holds the key to solving all problems. China supports the settlement of African issues by Africans in the African way. We are of the view that in resolving security issues, both the symptoms and the root causes must be addressed in a holistic way. China stands ready to take an active part in Africa's efforts in capacity building for maintaining and strengthening peace and security, and support Africa in its endeavors to speed up development, eradicate poverty, and realize durable peace. Fifth, we should remain committed to solidarity and cooperation in international affairs. China and Africa share common position on and interests in a wide range of international issues. We should strengthen coordination and collaboration so as to make the global governance system more just and equitable and uphold our common interests. China will continue to stand up and speak for Africa at the United Nations and other international fora to support Africa in playing a greater international role. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, to build China-Africa comprehensive strategic and cooperative partnership, China will implement 10 cooperation plans with Africa in the next 3 years, guided by the principle of government guidance, business being the major actors, market operation, and win-win cooperation. These plans aim at addressing 3 bottleneck issues holding back Africa's development, namely inadequate infrastructure, lack of professional and skilled personnel, and funding shortage, accelerating Africa's industrialization and agricultural modernization, and achieving sustainable self-development. First, we will implement China-Africa Industrialization Plan. China will actively promote industrial alignment and production capacity cooperation between China and Africa, and encourage more Chinese enterprises to make business investment in Africa. In cooperation with Africa, we will build or upgrade a number of industrial parks, send senior government experts and advisors to Africa, and set up regional, co-vocational education centers and several schools for capacity building. China will also train 200,000 technical personnel and provide 40,000 training opportunities for African personnel in China. Second, we will implement China-Africa Agricultural Modernization Plan. China will share its experience in agricultural development with Africa and transfer readily applicable technologies to it. We encourage Chinese enterprises to engage in large-scale farming, animal husbandry, and grain storage and processing in Africa to create more local jobs and increase farmers' income. China will carry out agricultural development projects in 100 African villages to raise rural living standards, send 30 teams of agricultural experts to Africa, and establish a 10+10 cooperation mechanism between Chinese and African agricultural research institutes. China is greatly concerned about the poor harvest caused by El Nino in many African countries and will provide 1 billion RMB yuan worth of emergency food aid to the affected countries.
3是中非基础设施合作计划。
Third, we will implement China-Africa Infrastructure Cooperation Plan. China will step up mutually beneficial cooperation with Africa in infrastructure planning, design, construction, operation, and maintenance. We support Chinese enterprises' active participation in Africa's infrastructural development, particularly in sectors such as railways, roads, regional aviation, ports, electricity, and telecommunications to enhance Africa's capacity for sustainable development. We will also support African countries in building and upgrading 5 transportation universities.
4是中非金融合作计划。
Fourth, we will implement China-Africa Financial Cooperation Plan. China will expand its RMB settlement and currency swap operations with African countries, encourage Chinese financial institutions to set up more branches in Africa, and increase its investment and financing cooperation with Africa in multiple ways to provide financial support and services for Africa's industrialization and modernization drive. Fifth, we will implement China-Africa Green Development Plan. China will support Africa in bolstering its capacity for green, low-carbon, and sustainable development, and support Africa in launching 100 projects to develop clean energy, protect wildlife, promote environment-friendly agriculture, and build smart cities. China-Africa cooperation will never be pursued at the expense of Africa's ecosystem and long-term interests. Sixth, we will implement China-Africa Trade and Investment Facilitation Plan. China will carry out 50 aid for trade programs to improve Africa's capacity for conducting internal and external trade and investment. China is ready to negotiate with countries and regional organizations in Africa comprehensive free trade agreements covering trade in goods and services and investment cooperation, and increase import of African products. China will support African countries in enhancing law enforcement capacity in areas such as customs, quality inspection, and taxation. We will also engage in cooperation with Africa in standardization, certification, and e-commerce. Seventh, we will implement China-Africa Poverty Reduction Plan. While intensifying its own poverty reduction efforts, I have to say that in the past 30 years and more, we lifted 700 million people out of poverty, making contribution to the achievement of Millennium Development Goals and human development on the whole. However, we still have 70 million people living under poverty. We're determined in the next 5 years, by 2020, when we finish the building of a moderate, prosperous society in all respects, eradicate poverty comprehensively and completely. At the same time, we will make our contribution to the international efforts in poverty alleviation. We will carry out in Africa 200 Happy Life projects and poverty reduction programs focusing on women and children. We will cancel outstanding debts in the form of bilateral governmental zero-interest loans borrowed by the relevant least developed African countries that mature at the end of 2015.
公共卫生合作计划。
Eighth, we will implement China-Africa Public Health Cooperation Plan. China will help Africa strengthen its public health prevention and control system, as well as capacity building by participating in the building of the African Center for Disease Control. We will support pace-setting cooperation between 20 Chinese hospitals and 20 African hospitals and upgrade hospital departments. We will continue to send medical teams to Africa and provide medical assistance such as the Brightness Action Program and maternal and child care. We will provide more anti-malaria compound artemisinin to Africa and encourage and support local drug production by Chinese enterprises in Africa to increase Africans' access to medicine. Ninth, we will implement China-Africa Cultural and People-to-People Cooperation Plan. China will build 5 cultural centers in Africa and provide satellite TV reception to 10,000 African villages. We will provide to Africa 2,000 educational opportunities with diplomas or degrees and 30,000 government scholarships. Every year, we will sponsor visits by 200 African scholars and study trips by 500 young Africans to China and train 1,000 media professionals from Africa. We support the opening of more direct flights between China and Africa to boost our tourism cooperation. Tenth, we will implement China-Africa Peace and Security Cooperation Plan. China will provide $60 million of grant to support the building and operation of the African Standby Force and the African capacity for the immediate response to crisis. China will continue to participate in UN peacekeeping missions in Africa and support African countries' capacity building in areas such as defense, counterterrorism, riot prevention, customs, and immigration control. To ensure the successful implementation of these 10 cooperation plans, China decides to provide a total of $60 billion of funding support. It includes $5 billion of grant and zero-interest loans, $35 billion of preferential facilities and export credit line, and concessional loans on more favorable terms. An increase of $5 billion to the China-Africa Development Fund and the special loan for the development for African SMEs respectively, and the China-Africa Fund of Production Capacity Cooperation with an initial contribution of $10 billion. Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 15th anniversary of FOCAC. The past 15 years have seen fruitful progress in China-Africa practical cooperation across the board. Two-way trade in China's total non-financial investment in Africa in 2014 was 22 times and 60 times that of the year 2000, respectively, which shows China's contribution to Africa's economic development has risen significantly. FOCAC has become a pace-setter in China-Africa cooperation, an example of South-South cooperation, and a leader in increasing international attention to and input in Africa. China-Africa relations have today reached a stage of growth unmatched in history. We should scale the heights, look afar, and take bold steps. Let us join hands, pool the vision and strength of the 2.4 billion Chinese and Africans, and open a new era of China-Africa win-win cooperation and common development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I thought it was not working. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for a very wonderful speech with wonderful content and everything, really explaining what our relationship is between China and Africa. Thank you very much. I will now give the floor to His Excellency President Robert Mugabe, the chairperson of the AU, to give a statement.
Your Excellencies, Co-Chairman, President Jacob Zuma and President Xi Jinping, Your Excellencies, Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency, the representative of Secretary General of the United Nations, if present, Your Excellency Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. Before I read my statement, I must say, after listening to President Xi Jinping, a speech so rich in forms of assistance covering practically all our sectors, be they agricultural, mining, infrastructural, industrial, etc., etc., poverty included, poverty alleviation, our children and the women. So so many facets of assistance. I'm sure you will agree with me that we give him a round of applause. A round of applause. Here is a man. Here is a man representing a country once called poor. A country which never was our colonizer. But there you are. He is doing to us what we expected those who colonized us yesterday to do. Let them, if they have ears to hear, let them hear. We will say he's a God-sent person. May God bless China and its people. Ladies and gentlemen, I am deeply honored to address this historic second summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC. On behalf of the African Union, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to our hosts for the warm welcome and hospitality extended to us. Co-chairman, I am particularly pleased that the second summit is a clear demonstration of the friendship, mutual respect, and understanding between African countries and China. Our relationship with China has stood the test of time and is destined to continue flourishing for many years to come. Co-chairman, I feel highly honored to take the floor immediately after President Xi Jinping has made the much anticipated announcement of new measures, which are historic and destined to change and to inject more vibrancy into the already dynamic relationship between China and Africa. I therefore take this opportunity to express our sincere and profound gratitude. Once again, our detractors have sought to portray and reduce our relations to purely commercial ties driven, in their view, as they say, by China's appetite for and desire to extract raw materials from our continent. That's what they say. On the contrary, reality, fortunately, does not conform to such distorted, imaginative creations. Our relations go much deeper than the extraction of resources. We are committed to strengthening the current and multifaceted and multidimensional relations between African countries and China. Co-chairman, 15 years ago, China and Africa decided to establish a platform founded on a strategic partnership to address issues of common development. The two partners agreed to promote a shared world vision based on peaceful development, mutual respect, and win-win cooperation. At this summit, we celebrate a milestone in the evolution of this platform on China-Africa cooperation. We therefore rededicate ourselves to the principal guidelines of our relations and to the mutuality of the outcomes we seek in our cooperation in the political, economic, cultural, and security spheres. Since the inception of FOCAC, we have witnessed tremendous growth in the relations between Africa and China. China has become Africa's premier investment and trading partner, a trend which has scaled up Africa-China trade volumes to $400 billion by 2020, from $220 billion in 2014. Co-Chairman, we commend efforts by FOCAC to deepen institutional ties with regional bodies, such as the African Union and its structures, as well as the African Development Bank. We acknowledge the achievements made so far in the implementation of the pledges that China made in the areas of trade, investment and financing, agriculture, human capital development, health, environment, market access, and regional integration. Co-chairpersons, dear colleagues, we welcome China's support for our determination to transform our country's economies through an industrialization strategy, which is driven by beneficiation and value addition of our natural resources and agricultural products. We also deeply appreciate China's willingness and readiness to continue to be a key partner in the development of our infrastructure at the national, regional, and continental levels. This year, several groupings of African countries took some major decisions that, when implemented, will give strong impetus to improving intra-African trade and in offering our external partners such as China a much larger source and trade market. The Continental Free Trade Area and COMESA East African Community and SADC Tripartite Free Trade Area should contribute to integrating Africa's markets and in facilitating the free movement of goods and means of production. Co-Chairman, there is no doubt that the rise of China and Africa as two significant players will have a positive and far-reaching impact in international relations that ensure the democratization of the international system of governance. The perpetuation of the historic injustice of the current system, be it in the United Nations Security Council or the Bretton Woods institutions, is unhealthy and undesirable. And now, together with China, we shall fight for real democracy at the United Nations. We continue to count on China's support and solidarity, therefore, in redressing this situation. Co-Chairman, the past 15 years of our cooperation in the context of FOCAC shows that this forum has induced and has been responsive to the dynamics of our evolving relationships. As we go forward in pursuit of implementing the global development agenda that we adopted in New York at the United Nations last September, it is proper that we assess the efficiency of our forum in the new development context. I am in no doubt that we will carry out this exercise with sincerity, mutual trust, friendship, and focus on concrete results, which are the bedrock of the foundations of FOCAC. Dear colleagues, distinguished delegates, as I conclude, I am confident that our deliberations here in Johannesburg will reinforce the interdependence between China and Africa as we pursue our shared vision. Long live Africa-China relationship. Long live the Forum for Africa-China Cooperation. And I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The chairperson of the AU, His Excellency President Robert Mugabe. Thank you very much for also for thanking China on our behalf. The wise words indeed from our elder, the senior statesman, but also our chair, continental chair. Thank you very much indeed. I will now give the floor to the chairperson of the AU Commission, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, to take the floor.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Jacob Zuma, President of the Republic of South Africa and co-chair of the summit. Your Excellency, Mr. Xi Jinping, President of the People's Republic of China and the co-chair. Your Excellency, President Robert Gabriel Mugabe, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and Chairperson of the African Union. Excellencies, Heads of State and Government. Excellency, Deputy President Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Honorable Ministers, leaders of our private and cultural sectors, Excellencies, Heads of the diplomatic missions, representatives of international and regional organizations, distinguished guests. I'm honored to address the second summit of the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAC, on behalf of the African Union Commission. Our sincere gratitude to the President, Government, and people of South Africa for hosting this event and their legendary hospitality, and to the President of the People's Republic of China for co-chairing the summit. Excellencies, the theme of this summit, China-Africa Progressing Together, Win-Win Cooperation for Common Development, is very appropriate to the very type of cooperation and friendship we continue to build, which is based on historic ties of trade links that go back centuries, mutual support and respect, and enduring friendship. The FOCAC summit in 2000, which was the first one, came after the end of apartheid, as the continent was once again marshalling its forces to throw off the shackles of indebtedness, underdevelopment, poverty, and marginalization. It is clear from China's experience that it is indeed possible to modernize and develop rapidly following an endogenous path of development. Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, is our own Africa's transformative path of development, which aims at achieving an Africa that is integrated, prosperous, and peaceful, driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Excellencies, this gathering represents the hopes and aspirations of about 2.5 billion members of humanity. We must therefore ask ourselves, What are the few areas that will lift our people out of poverty, live up to their aspirations in the context of a win-win cooperation and friendship? And I think the speech of His Excellency, the President of the People's Republic of China, has answered this question to a large extent of what needs to be done by us in a win-win cooperation to live up to the aspirations of our people. But we take into account that Africa has a young population in an aging world. By 2050, it will have the biggest labor force in the world. But let me say that over there and above the excellent cooperation we have in peace and security with China, let me emphasize a few other areas. We should enhance the political dialogue between Africa and China. And the second area, which was also mentioned, is that Africa actually spends $80 billion per annum on food imports. So working together, we can ensure that Africa becomes self-sufficient in food supply by modernizing agriculture, increasing productivity, engaging our communities and farmers in a full value chain, including agro-processing and agribusiness. Secondly, industrialization is a requisite centerpiece of this win-win collaboration and friendship. Using our comparative advantages, we must work together in promoting key enabling sectors. There is a need for us to beneficiate our natural and mineral resources to create jobs for our young population. Also, unprocessed commodities have a higher price volatility than processed minerals, particularly for ores and metals, with annual fluctuations in prices ranging from around 23% for unprocessed, while only 13% for processed ores. Fourthly, we must accelerate the implementation of our Memorandum of Understanding signed between the AU and China on infrastructure that includes highways, railways, aviation, and industrialization. Of course, there can be no industrialization without increasing energy generation in Africa, so we can work together and leapfrog our energy generation by using newer technologies such as wind, solar, geothermal, so that our development does not contribute to the emissions and climate change that we see. But of course, all the above will require skilled personnel. Africa spends about $5 billion per year in importing these type of skills. This cooperation must therefore be the wind behind the sails of our skills revolution. We must focus on science, technology, engineering, and maths, as they are critical in supporting youth entrepreneurship, employment, and innovation. We must also continue to work together to develop and improve the public health systems in Africa. And in this regard, we would like to put on record our appreciation to China for the timely response to the Ebola outbreak in Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, and by cooperating with the AU towards the operationalization of the African Center for Disease Control. Agenda 2063 enjoins all of us to mobilize, galvanize, and work with all sectors of our society to achieve these laudable goals, especially the private sector, institutions of higher learning, civil society, women and youth. Excellencies, we both have a very rich cultural heritage, and we must promote cultural exchanges, as was said, and tourism, enhance people-to-people cooperation, strengthen cooperation between the African women and the Chinese Women's Federation. In conclusion, I would just like to quote or refer to what the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang in 2014 said when he argued that Africa should be considered as a pole in the multipolar world, and also characterized Africa and China as spiders which can work together to tie down a lion. This means that indeed we can overcome the biggest challenges facing humanity today, such as poverty, underdevelopment. We can work together to change the justice system internationally. We can work together to change the political landscape in the United Nations, including addressing the historic injustice of Africa not being represented in the UN Security Council. So it is very clear from what the President of the People's Republic of China, Xi Jinping, that FOCAC will indeed scale the heights, and it's looking forward, and that it represents a true partnership. As our President, Chair of the Union, has said, we are always asked about China. But we can show concretely, historically and presently, what China is doing to achieve what is the theme of the summit, China-Africa progressing together in a win-win cooperation for common development. So as the Commission, we are determined to work harder and faster to ensure that all the things that we have to do with China can be achieved. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for your statement, the Chair of the AU Commission. The co-chair will also deliver the welcoming remarks.
Your Excellencies, heads of state and government, ministers, delegates, and invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed our great honor and privilege to host the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation Summit in South Africa. We are pleased that the FOCAC Summit is taking place in Africa for the first time. The decision clearly illustrates the underlying ethos of the FOCAC platform, which is mutual trust, equality, and partnership. Esteemed colleagues, let me welcome the opening statements by my esteemed colleagues, President Xi, President Mugabe, and the chairperson of the AU Commission, Dr. Dlamini Zuma. Let me especially acknowledge and welcome the new measures announced by President Xi this morning, which definitely take this partnership between Africa and China to its highest level since the inception of the FOCAC. let me also underline this statement by recalling what President Xi said when we were in Beijing celebrating 70 years of the defeat of fascism. He made an important statement to the world that the capacity of China economically as well as militarily, which was displayed at the time, is not for war, but is for peace. The strength of China is there to defend the vulnerables, is there to ensure that there is no more any war in the world. This was repeated at the General Assembly when he offered to support Africa's efforts to solve this problem, to stand by force, as well as the reaction force. We should do things quicker, as well as offering to the UN the capacity of China to help all over the world to stop conflicts and wars. This gesture that has been shown this morning indicates China's position globally. It is there for peace and development, and it is engaging with Africa. I would like to thank you, President Xi. As President Mugabe said, this is concrete evidence that our relations with China is different from other relations we have had in the centuries. Your Excellencies, tomorrow will be the second anniversary of the passing of our beloved President Nelson Mandela. His belief in peace, freedom, democracy, equality, justice, and human rights for all must continue to inspire us to work tirelessly each day to build a better Africa and a more just world. Your Excellencies, the theme of this summit, Africa-China progressing together, win-win cooperation for common development, is a clear indication of the intentions of this strategic partnership. Originally, we were comrades in arms in the quest for liberation and freedom at the height of colonialism and apartheid. Given that history, it was only natural that Africa has developed a win-win partnership for development and progress with China over the years. The partnership encompasses cooperation in a number of developmental areas, including agriculture, renewable energy, skills training, health, peace and security, and infrastructure development. These elements align with and integral to our vision for Africa as outlined by Agenda 2063. Already, the partnership is yielding economic results. China has become Africa's largest trade partner, and Africa is now one of China's major import sources and fourth largest investment destination. This partnership can only yield further positive results for Africa's development. However, we meet during a difficult global economic crisis. This affects both our trade outlook as well as investment flows into our continent. This period, therefore, calls for innovation and resilience to make our economies survive the global meltdown. Also, there is still hope for Africa despite the global economic downturn. African economies and the sub-Saharan region in particular have some of the fastest growing economies in the world. Importantly, China and Africa, the African countries share the advantage of having largely youthful populations. We also have the numbers. Together, we make up nearly a third of the global population. Africa has in the region of 1.1 billion people, and China has 1.3 billion people. This translates into immense potential, both as markets, but as producers as well. Africa also has unique agricultural conditions, innovative and entrepreneurial business people, indigenous knowledge, a huge economic potential in our oceans, and significant quantities of mineral resources, to name a few. I have deliberately mentioned mineral resources last because whilst these are a blessing, they have also made Africa vulnerable to exploitation. It is for this reason that we want to prioritize beneficiation and value addition. In that way, what is buried in the belly of our soil will translate into benefit for the bellies of our citizens. We are also keen to explore cooperation with China to ensure the long-term viability of African mining and extractive industries in a global market. This is important in light of the declining demand for commodities. We also welcome cooperation between Africa and China on infrastructure development in the continent. Africa needs improved connectivity through road, rail, and air, and we need water infrastructure, energy, and a lot more to improve economic activity and improve lives. Excellencies, the year 2015 has brought about the painful humanitarian disaster occasioned by unparalleled global migration. Scores of migrants from Africa and the Middle East have perished in the Mediterranean Sea in their attempts to reach Europe. This desperation is caused by the urgent need to flee from wars and conflict and from poverty and hopelessness. tragically, we are also witnessing increasing incidents of terrorism in parts of our continent, France and elsewhere. The tragedies remind us as leaders that we must work harder to build peace and also to promote inclusive growth and development. We cannot have lasting military solutions to this problem. It needs political, social, economic solutions to ensure sustainability. In the short term, we need to protect our youth, in particular from being brainwashed into joining extremist groupings that perpetuates violence and destruction. Importantly, we must give the African people who live in poverty hope that a better future is possible. Africa has already taken steps to find African solutions to end conflicts and instability. The continent has committed to silencing the guns in our continent by 2020, in alignment with our commitment to Agenda 2063. We have already taken a significant step forward towards bringing the African Standby Force and its rapid development capacity into operation. The force will respond quickly in conflict situations to save lives and bring stability. I would like to acknowledge the tangible contribution of the People's Republic of China's regarding the matter of bringing peace in the African continent. In addition to participating in up to the 16 United Nations peacekeeping missions in Africa, China currently has approximately 2,000 peacekeeping personnel on the ground. We appreciate this commitment to peace, development, and progress. It gives practical meaning to the belief of President Xi that China's military capability must be utilized to achieve peace. Your Excellencies, we must give our people hope that indeed the guns will be silenced and that peace can be achieved in every part of the continent. Peace creates better conditions for the achievement of economic development and growth. Your Excellencies, very important discussions are taking place in Paris, in France. The 21st Conference of Parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, COP21, building on the successful Durban COP17 conference in 2011. The fifth assessment report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change confirms that each of the past 3 decades has been successively warmer than the preceding decades. We must take this warning very seriously, as global warming is already affecting agriculture, human settlements, water supplies, and other services in our continent. As the chair of the Group of 77 plus China and an active member of the African Group of Negotiators and the Brazil, South Africa, India, and China Group, known as the BASIC, South Africa has the special responsibility of advancing the collective and shared interests of developing countries in the negotiations of the Paris Agreement. This necessitates defending the legal rights of developing countries under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. This includes the right to receive the support they require to make the transition to a low-carbon economy and to adapt to climate change, including support for those that have suffered loss and damage. It is also a fundamental principle of the Convention that our actions must be based on the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. We wish all parties successful negotiations in Paris. These are set to intensify next week. COP21 must succeed and must produce a legally binding outcome that is applicable to all that will save this planet for future generations. Your Excellencies, esteemed guests, the strategic partnership and cooperation between Africa and the People's Republic of China is an important instrument towards the achievement of our development goals. This summit will serve to further enhance the partnership for mutual benefit. I wish you all a successful summit indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you all for gracing this opening of the Johannesburg Summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation with your presence. It is my pleasure to now declare this session adjourned. I thank you. Thank you.
Of States and Government, distinguished guests, allow me to invite the heads of states for a family photo. Their Excellencies will move in the same order they are seated, starting from the back row with Seychelles, thereafter followed by the first row. Their protocol officers on the other side will assist the heads of states to move to a family photo. Your Excellencies, may you all rise to allow the heads of states to take leave. Thank you.
and the naked, the voiceless victims of the infant mortality plague.
That has seen so many of us young ones buried before reaching the age of 1. We are your children.
We call upon